how much damage can we do with the rack in this Legacy League? Let's find out. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today we are going to be playing Mono Black Rack in Legacy. Or maybe more accurately, we're going to be playing a Mono Black deck that has a few copies of the Rack. Now this is a classic Mono Black card. At the beginning of the chosen player's upkeep, which in a one-on-one game is always your opponent, the Rack deals X damage to that player, where X is 3 minus the number of cards in his or her hand. So, if your opponent is Hellbent and has 0 cards, this is a lightning bolt every single turn, which is really cool. But in order for that to happen, you're going to either have to have them very aggressively discard, or you have to get a little creative. Enter Chains of Mephistopheles. A card so complicated that if you Google it, you'll end up with multiple different flowcharts for how this card actually works. In short, if you have a draw other than one of the draws for your turn itself, you're going to discard a card and then draw a card. The text is a little more complicated than that, but that's the general idea. And our hope here is that our ponders and brainstorms that our opponents are casting are not actually going to accumulate extra cards in their hand, because they are going to discard a card first and then draw their card. So you end up with like looting effects rather than real draw effects. And with Brainstorm in particular, since you have to put cards back afterwards, like, that can end up being pretty tough. Let's go ahead and take a look at the whole deck list here. Now, today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com as well as Cool Stuff Inc. And if you need paper magic cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order. So this is Cody's Mono Black deck list. And while a lot of the things that you see here you would expect, one of them is kind of cute. We are playing Liliana's Triumph. This is an edict effect that has each opponent sacrifice a creature, so it doesn't target for something like a Veil of Summer. And if you control a Liliana Planeswalker, each opponent also discards a card. And that's something that is supposed to lean into our synergies with the Rack, which we can also tutor up with an Urza's Saga. Otherwise, the main deck here is what you might expect from a mono black deck in Legacy, with Grief and Troll of Khazad-dum alongside Reanimate. And keep in mind that you can also reanimate your opponent's cards that you force them to discard. The sideboard, generally speaking, is full of just solid cards. The one you might not be super familiar with is Court of Ambition, which is going to kind of act sort of like the Rack. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. But if we're still the Monarch, instead each opponent loses 6 life unless they discard 2 cards. So we are hoping to bully some people today. We are hoping to make our opponent not play Magic, and our general shell is pretty powerful, although some things like Liliana are kind of being power crept out of Legacy, so we'll see how she ends up feeling today. With that being said, why don't we go ahead and hop into the matches here? Let's battle. Alright. We're leading on a Rack, which is like maybe not going to do a lot at the beginning of the game here. But like we have Dauthi Voidwalker, Hymn to Turok, and the Troll is going to go and serve as an additional mana source. Okay. Prismatic Ending? No Prismatic Ending. So this is a to him or not to him turn. And I believe the answer is him. Just briefly talking about why. If my opponent does not have Prismatic Ending here, it's pretty likely that they have Swords to Plowshares, and I would like to remove that before I go and play my first creature if possible. Opponent's going to hide some of their best stuff. We get a Ponder and a Flooded Strand. How good that is very dependent on how many lands are actually in my opponent's hand. Marsh Flats, you say? That one's kind of interesting. Yeah. So, my Dauthi Voidwalker here is really good, and I'm quite happy to have a second one as well. So we are playing against Cephalid Breakfast, a Cephalid Illusionist combo deck list, and I might be dead on my opponent's turn. They pitched a Cephalid Illusionist there. If they have another one, I'm dead. The rack will now start doing damage. Am I dead? Signs point very heavily towards yes. Yep. So I am going to let my opponent mill themselves out here. Like I am going to be deterministically dead, but I just want to see if they're like a Stoneforge Mystic build or an all-in combo build. I believe with the Orum's chant there, it's, well, fuck me, I was wrong. They are a Stoneforge Mystic build. Okay, they do have the Caldra. So they target themselves, which will put their Dread Return into their graveyard. Yep. And then they Dread Return the Thassa's Oracle. So I not only have to worry about this combo, but I also have to worry about Caldra complete. Shadow Spear's not super necessary. Sorcery Speed Edicts are like not the greatest here. I might get rid of my Lilianas. Like a lot of this sort of stuff is probably going to be better than Liliana. Like I upgrade to an Instant Speed Edict, which matters. And then it's just like, how much of this sort of stuff can I afford to be cute with against a combo deck that's this consistent? The answer might be like none of it. I think all the copies of the rack have to go. And then how do I feel about Chains? Probably good enough to keep it. Maybe I don't go this high on opposition agents. I think I like Chains better when I'm on the draw. Opposition agent when I'm on the play is pretty reasonable. Not that Chains isn't, though. Opposition agent plays better into the flash gameplay that I would like to see. Well, this hand does stuff. I'm not sure that it wins without a second land. I'm gonna ship this one. This is turn 2 Voidwalker, turn 3 opposition agent. I can keep Surgical and bin Grief. That's fine. It's not my ideal. It is less immediately impactful than my 7-card hand, but it is much more consistent at doing things that matter. Alright, looks like they're just passing the turn. Would I like to Grief pitching Surgical? I don't think so. I think I'm going to hardcast that Grief a decent portion of the time this game. It's just like a little awkward because if the Douthie Voidwalker does stick around, then the Surgical is worse. Yes, that's fine. Okay. I kind of want to Grief this turn so that I know the speed at which to play Opposition Agent. I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm just going to Sorcery Speed this so my opponent can't Wizard Cycle step through in response. Force, pitching Force, sure. I'm going to try to spike the land next turn. Maybe playing too conservatively with this Grief, but I don't have a clock in play right now. Awkward. I guess I'll cast it. My opponent will obviously fetch in response. I think I'm going to name Shuko. My opponent's got more tutors for that. And we've got Hardcast Grief next turn. I've got Surgical available. And that's a tutor for Shuko. We do very possibly just lose to Fair Urza Saga Construct tokens. We've got Edicts in our deck. Dread Return and Flusterstorm. Is this your graveyard? That is your graveyard. I'm going to take the Fluster. I don't think I'm going to blow the Surgical just immediately on the Dread Return. Okay. Slightly awkward timing for me. My Surgical is now much worse. Alright. That'll drop my opponent to 15. I'll call it a turn. Sure. Be a second Urza Saga Construct token. Okay. Yep. I am fine taking some damage here. A Reanimate. Roll is an X5. That will wall these creatures. Would I be fine trading Grief for a Construct token? I think I would. Because then my opponent doesn't have 3 creatures in play. Bam. That's good with me. Tradesies. I could grief here, but I think just doing the troll and trying to end the game is going to be better. If I end up taking that Dread Return out of hand, I can start thinking about surgicaling Swords to Plowshares so my troll doesn't end up leaving play. Ugh. Not the best draws. Opponent is at 9. Sure. Oh, they are still attacking. My own Urza Saga. A little slow for my liking, but things get weird. It's okay to have access to that. Alright. Cool. So if memory serves, my opponent didn't cast anything all game that Chains would have impacted. My opposition agent is a little slower to just do the thing on the draw. So maybe these become the lilies on the draw. I could maybe go down some hymns and play a few more things that just impact the board. But hymning away a piece of like a piece of equipment from my opponent, for example, could be a really big deal. This is fine. Doesn't have the turn 1 play that I otherwise might like, but it has good resources. Let's just swamp pass. I might end up griefing pitching troll next turn, especially if my opponent plays something like a Stoneforge Mystic. Okay. Yeah, I think I like grief pitch troll. I don't think I'm cycling here. Ooh. Well, I'm in. Swamp. Grief pitch troll. And then I get to decide whether or not I want to do Douthie or him afterwards. Probably has to be Douthie, since my opponent could have hidden a Cephalid Illusionist on top. Well, there's a Cephalid Illusionist in hand, and a tutor for another in play. So I'm going to take an Illusionist, and then we will slam a Douthie Voidwalker. Call it a turn. Right, there's a Strand. The fetch with that timing is almost certainly just playing around opposition agent unless they're using the mana now. So it seems like they have playable stuff and aren't willing to take action now. Step through's a thing. I think I play him and Castle Lockdwain here. And we're attempting to take this out. Narcomoeba and Teferi leave, so they still have step through. Do I want a Teferi more than a Douthie Voidwalker? I don't think so. Chip on in. Opponent's at 16. Here's the Wizard cycling. Or a Cephalid Illusionist. Now, if my opponent randomly spikes their Thassa's Oracle, they can still just kill me this turn. But it looks like they do not have it, which is cool. I will make my land drop. I think it makes sense to drop Liliana of the Veil now. Take that out of play, and my opponent is done with me. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I personally keep all of my deck lists for every format on this site. I love that I can go and sort them by types and tags if I need to. There's a lot of different viewing options. It can give you some math about your mana symbol, your curve, and you can even playtest and do sample opening hands with it. Check this site out if you haven't before. It's awesome. Keep. I'm going to need a second land. I get a couple of draw steps to do that. We're probably playing against Show and Tell. What I pitch to the grief is actually pretty interesting. I wish it could be Shadow Spear. I think it's him, though. I think it's hard for me to use two hymns after double griefing my opponent on turn 1. Take the Veil of Summer with one of those. I'll reanimate the grief then. I probably have to just take the Atraxa. Like, I would absolutely adore greeting it up and like trying to wait a turn to Douthie Voidwalker and get the Atraxa under it. But if my opponent spikes Show and Tell or gets Show and Tell off the Ponder, Ancient Tomb Lotus Petal, Show and Tell Atraxa just pretty much instantly wins them this game. Sure. Okay. And now I need to get lucky and spike a land. Dark Ritual's basically a land. I'm going to hit my opponent for 3. Bring them to 17. And now, do I hymn them? Or do I just play Douthie Voidwalker Shadow Spear? And then hope to have any land to Liliana's Triumph a creature out of play later. I think I like that. Ooh. Alright. So we have a 3-turn clock, 6, 12, 18. The show and tell is happening. It is Atraxa. It's bad news. My opponent found both show and tell and Atraxa pretty quickly. Alright, so they have show and tell, Lotus Petal that they just cast. They're probably just going to cast a show and tell again. They're just going to put another Atraxa into play. Oh, they're going to go with Omniscience. Sure. I'm going to let them look at a few more cards, but I think I am dead at this point. I think it's reasonable to not cast the Hymn to Turok in the position that I was in, because my opponent has 3 cards. I know one of them is Ancient Tomb, which I don't care about discarding. I was 2 draws away from another land, which probably meant that I wasn't going to win that game regardless. Alright, what don't I want? I don't want this Spell Bomb. I don't want this Shadow Spear. I do probably need more Edicts. The racks are potentially expendable. Maybe I don't need more Edicts if I have Lily's Triumph and Lily herself. I can play like Opposition Agent. Or I can go with some number of Surgicals. Surgicaling Show and Tell is quite good. I think a couple of those are better than the rack. Alright. Now if I'm using Dark Ritual on 1, Swamp, Dark Ritual, Thought Sees You, Troll Cycle. Yeah. Let's try to obliterate a hand. Thought Sees You. I've got options. Always taking the Veil. That is always just going to be very good against me. I'll Thought Seize again. This time I think I'm going to take the Brainstorm. I don't think I Grief immediately. Swamp Cycle this. Grab a new Swamp and pass. So my opponent does not have red mana for Sneak Attack, and we've left them with a bunch of fatties stranded in hand. That's not bad. We're just going to fire that off and hope that my opponent didn't draw exactly Veil. So there's City and Atraxa gone. We've got a Grief to take out a Sneak Attack if I get to the point where I think that I need to do that. But I would kind of prefer to just hard cast this Grief if possible and put a Clock into play. Nice. Swamp Cycle is now castable. And I will. Okay. Well, we'll take the thing that can ultimately put creatures into play. Opponent has no cantrips, no mana, but, you know, runner, or actually, just runner can get them there. Because they can spike Show and Tell, Soul Land, and then just Emrakul me. But if I get one more discard spell, my opponent is dead because I Emrakul them. It's not a discard spell, but it's pretty good. Opponent eats 6. I'll drop Chains. Need to dodge Show and Tell. We succeeded. Surgical's okay. Send on in. I don't think I just Surgical immediately. I think I Surgical if my opponent puts something on the stack, because I don't want to give them a chance to just cast a Veil of Summer and draw a card. So that's interesting with Chains here. I think I Surgical Atraxa at this point. It's just a guaranteed card out of their hand, which matters when these have to be discard draws. Alright. Atraxas are out. Do I leave the ones in their deck? Like, basically, I just don't want them to draw exactly Show and Tell, right? So I should leave the extras in their deck. Monster Manual. Neat. Yep, I'll leave the others in the deck. Alright, Omniscience and Sneak Attack. And another Sneak Attack are gone. They do now need to put extra card back. Cool. I feel like the things that I have are about appropriate. This is an edict-based hand. While I don't mind having access to edicts, the edicts are not what make hands keepable. Edicts just like line up super poorly versus like Omniscience and Atraxa. I still want them because I want to be able to beat a creature that's put into play, but we're looking for that early discard. Urza Saga Swamp Cycle. Turn 2, 4 mana is Lily of the Veil and Reanimate. That's honestly not bad. I'm gonna keep that, pitch Lily's Triumph. I can also just spike a black land, and this hand looks pretty reasonable. Playing Urza Saga on 1 works towards a very fast Pithing Needle for sneak attack as well. Alright. Not my best turn 1, but hopefully a disgustingly good turn 2. Bounce on a 1-lander after a double mulligan. Okay. I have 4 mana. I always begin with Swamp Dark Ritual, and then it gets more interesting from there. Because, like, I could just play Douthie Voidwalker into Thoughtseize instead. And then some portion of the time I have an Emrakul or an Atraxa next turn. I think I like playing Lily. Lily is an each player thing, and my opponent might accidentally just discard an Atraxa here, and then I get to oops reanimate it. So let's each discard a card. I'll discard him. Yuri? 6 power. Interesting. I think I'm going to Thoughtseize, though. If my opponent has a Veil. They do. Alright. I'm pretty good against a Show and Tell with a Lily in play now, though. And I'm pretty good against a sneak attack. Ooh. With Pithing Needle coming here. So sneak attack is off. I think I'm griefing pitching Voidwalker. Another Veil, sure. That is annoying. But my whole point this turn was to go Hellbent, so I think that's fine. I'm going to reanimate the Troll over the Fury. The Troll has a form of evasion. Now we'll Lily Plus and take out a card from my opponent. It is an Emrakul. So, land Show and Tell creature is very strong against what I am doing. Otherwise, this Lily is probably going to do some very serious hurt on my opponent. Alright, they're at 13. We try discard again. Multiple Show and Tells. Okay. That probably means I take the Atraxa here. And then I'll plus this. Opponent gets rid of 1 copy of Show and Tell. And this is going to be a little tight. Because my opponent is pretty likely to be able to Show and Tell next turn. And they are at 13 life, so they're on a 3-turn clock, unless something like that happens. Alright, they Show and Tell this turn. Sure. That's very reasonable. So I always just need another land drop here. We do that. I will make you sacrifice the Fury. And Troll leaves you dead next turn. I think we're good. Alright, we get there. So this hand is a question of like, how much do I believe in turn 1 chains? Or maybe it's not. Maybe this hand is just like, I can use this Dark Ritual to just hardcast a Grief on turn 2. This is a weird hand. I could Grief pitch Chains, Grief pitch Triumph, like swinging for the fences against blue. I'm gonna keep it. This is a little uncomfortable, but let's see what's going on over there. What you got? Well, my opponent's gonna draw cards. Chains will be fine. Lion's Eye Diamond is the scariest of these. It represents the easiest wins. I'm going to take that. And I think we are going to awkwardly use the Dark Ritual to cast Chains to make my opponent's cantrips worse. That makes the Grief that I have in hand a bit worse. But Preordain and Brainstorm are considerably worse, as is the Bauble. I don't feel great about things here. All right. I am fine with that trade. The grief in my hand was not really good. Sure. And they are going to crack it immediately. All right. So my opponent now needs to discard a card. A Thoughtseize. Sure. We'll take another card. Dark Ritual, LED, Preordain. I think I'm going to keep taking the artifact mana that can be played out. Land's a great draw for my opponent, I think. I don't mind shutting off the graveyard. This is also just a respectable clock. No threshold for something like a Cabal Ritual. If that ends up being relevant in the matchup, we've shut off Past in Flames. And they junk a Thoughtseize. Not interested in converting Doughty Voidwalker into Thoughtseize at this time. All right, this is 3 to activate. This is 3 to activate, so we're not there yet. Oh, I guess this is a non-bow, huh? All right. Castle Lockpoint has betrayed me. Ooh. Okay, we're going. That's 4 mana. Dark Ritual, 5 mana. Do we have a legit Adnause? We have a legit Adnause. Okay, sure. None of that stuff is doing anything. My opponent might want to consider stopping and just trying to win on a following turn. Like, they have very good resources to win later. Okay. Polluted Delta over Underground Sea? Question mark. Or sorry, once they went to 3, Doughty Voidwalker kills them. I guess they can brainstorm their way out of this. They've got enough random cards that they can discard. Yeah, I could die here. All right. Let's see if they can ritual their way to victory. They need to find a tutor. They've got an LED so they can go Hellbent. Sure. Yep. Uh-huh. Alright, there's the Infernal Tutor. That'll get Tendrils, and I will die, unfortunately. My hand was a little awkward, so that's not overly surprising. I will concede. Alright, in theory, we shouldn't lose the post-sideboard games. We've got the fucking hate here. Just... I might even play Court of Ambition, honestly. I'm probably going to go Needle out, Spellbomb out, Spear out. Sorry, like, Rack, you are just not having any time to get set up here. Triumph out. Maybe Chains out. How many is this? I will still need another cut. Yeah, Chains is probably going. Do I want to Court? I'm going to get rid of Court or a Lily. I think I'll keep the Lily. This enters tapped, which is super awkward. Is the hand fine? It's Grief on turn 1, Reanimate Grief on turn 2. Maybe hit Doughty Voidworker. I think I can get a smoother hand than this. Yeah, this is better. So this is land, Dark Ritual, Hymn, Cycle for Troll. Yeah. Yeah, this hand is much stronger. So, Dark Rit, Hymn, Oseiju, and Dark Ritual. Decent hits. And get my second land drop. If I don't hit a black card that I want to play, I probably just play Urza Saga on turn 2. Alright. There we go. It's overall not quite as disruptive as I would want, and if my opponent discards me taking the Mindbreak Trap, like, life's awkward for me. Yep, that's fine. For game 3, when I'm on the draw, I might bring my Pithing Needle back. I just wanted to board in so many cards, though. I'll probably go down 1 Surgical. But we'll see what my opponent does. Bottom. Ooh. Yeah, boarding out the Needle for this game might be costly. So, Construct. Now that's float mana. My Urza Saga got me a 1/1 and doesn't get me an artifact. Rough. Alright. And Veil. Ugh. Things are not lining up well this game. Turn 4, my opponent's at 17. I haven't super meaningfully disrupted them. I just took away 2 mana sources. My opponent doesn't have a ton of cards, but you know, Dark Ritual Ad Naus is something that is certainly on the horizon here. Yep. I imagine it's Ad Naus. And we'll see if my opponent whiffs on like Lotus Petals specifically. Okay. Yeah. I have 5 power in play. Yep. Okay. So my opponent is now dead on board, unless I think they had 1 card in hand. I guess that card could have been Lotus Petal. Yeah, okay. So for this game, I'm going to take the Pithing Needle back in. Got 2 Surgicals in. Can make that 1 Surgical in. The Surgicals become better if my opponent is playing Dice Lost. Oh, I didn't board out my Shadow Spear before. I think I value Surgical as a better card versus Spellbomb that is searchable via Saga. Go down a Lily, just make my deck slightly faster. I want to go down 2 Lilies and play another Surgical. Like if my opponent is on Dice Lost as a part of their engine, that's very reasonable. All right. Frankly, this hand is just not fast enough, despite the fact that Null Rod is good. I think I need a turn 1 play. I think I'm going to ship it. Yes, this hand is very good. Just turn 1 Thoughtseize and Grief, probably. Get rid of Opposition Agent. And then Null Rod on turn 2 is a hell of a drug. Let's see what my opponent's got. They can turn 1 me, like that is possible. Probably not this time. If my opponent plays out some artifact mana. I'm a little bit scared of like Lotus Petal, sack, Veil of Summer. Okay. You're just going off on turn 1? Or are you just putting a Wishclaw into play? Oh, you're going off on turn 1. Okay. Sure. Infernal Tutor up to 6 mana. Green Eve? Oh, Paradise Lost. Sure. We rolled a 4 and a 2 for a total of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That just lets them get back everything, right? Yep. And then they just play their tutor again and go for tendrils. Oh, do they not deterministically have it already? Sure. Okay. So 4 mana, 5 mana, down to 3 mana, up to 6 mana, tendrils. Yep. Yeah, I don't think I'm supposed to mulligan this 6-card hand. The 6-card hand is incredibly good, but we got. All right. I'm casting a Dark Ritual this turn. And from there, it gets a little interesting. Let's go him before Thoughtseize this time. Give the people something to talk about. Source the Plowshares, Scalding Tarn. Narset, Minskinboo. Okay. I'm going to take Narset since she comes down earlier and Pithing Needle, Minskinboo. Ooh. Pithing Needle, Wasteland. Let's take Narset. She still comes down earlier. And hope to find an answer to Minskinboo in some capacity before my opponent has more mana. So we are playing against some 4 to 5 color control nonsense. That's not bad. I still have to just Pithing Needle Wasteland here. Fucking wild. Not fetching with Flooded Strand in response. I still have to name Wasteland, but it feels bad. Okay. That's very good. I think I play the Chains first. I think making something like a Brainstorm noticeably worse is important. And then I'll go for the him next turn. This also gives my opponent a chance to play some more cards and increase the chance that I actually just him to Turok the Minskinboo out of my opponent's hand. Alright. Alright, well, another Narset came back. Binding Force of Will. Well, that's pretty bad for me. Narset noticeably does not draw. So let's attempt to him my opponent here. Force pitching a Dress down. And now we will grief the Minskin-Boo. Not the way that I wanted to take the Minskin-Boo, but god damn it. Yep. Alright. The Minskin-Boo is gone. Narset on board is rough. Okay, good. My opponent now gets to do Uro nonsense. And I don't have a lot going on. There's not blue, blue, green. Never mind. Now there is. Alright. So the good news is my opponent is milling cards rather than drawing cards, but like the bad news is they still have an Uro. Also, my Castle Locthwain is not great with both Chains and Narset in play. I'm just going to get beaten in the face for 6. And that is going to kill me in short order. Yeah. I think I'm done. I also think it's possible my opponent was supposed to activate the Narset pre-combat. I mean, I can edict away the Uro, it just comes back immediately. I guess I'm playing still, but life's bad. Edict the Uro. Yeah, that's why I thought they were supposed to minus the Narset next turn, was for finding that. We're fine conceding to that. So, don't mind the court. Sheoldred's Edict can hit Planeswalkers, so I'll probably sub a couple of like Liliana's Triumphs for that. And I can think about opposition agents. Shadow Spears are probably going... Alright, what about the rack? Am I actually going to play that versus this opponent? Is the rack better than opposition agent? No. I don't think it is. My opponent's also just going to refuel their hand with like Narsets and stuff. Even with Chains. I'm going to keep the rack in the deck because it's like round 4 and the rack has dealt 1 point of damage so far. That's my rationale for keeping it. Yeah. This is a keep. We'll like grief. Yeah. We're going to grief, pitching a grief. Looking for a Force of Will over there specifically. Alright, there's the Force of Will. Now, we will Dark Ritual. Of the stuff that's over there, I want to hit Minskin-Boo and Lorien Revealed in theory. Let's try to hit one of them and then grief the other. Valk and Veil. Then Reanimate grief. I think I take the blue source and hope that my opponent's cantrips just don't work this game. Blah. Alright. I'm treating the Spell Bomb as a discard spell that takes Spell Pierce out of my opponent's hand. Nope. Running blue. Okay. Sure. Hit my opponent for 3. They're at 14. I'm going to go ahead and draw a card here, trying to hit another land drop. Failing. I think I can wait 1 turn on the grief. Okay. Sure. My opponent's 3 draws were running blue land, Narset. I will be a little upset. Sure. That's annoying. And now I have to take that Minskin-Boo out. No, I don't. Yes, I do, because Spell Pierce. That was a roller coaster of emotion. Alright, you're at 10. I probably grief pitch Lily. This is just not happening on the amount of mana that I have this game. Yeah, we'll take the Minskin-Boo. Opponent has Spell Pierce. I have multiple answers to a Planeswalker that my opponent plays. Okay. Opponent just dredged Life from the Loam. Sure. I could Pithing Needle and name Misty Rainforest, but I don't think that's particularly strong. Sure. This may be a pretty sad game of Magic. Pithing Needle is now live around Spell Pierce. Opponent is at 4. Do I just want to play Needle and just name something like Narset? to decrease the number of looks my opponent has at something like Swords to Plowshare? I think so. That fetch puts my opponent to dead to grief. Sure. All right, name Narset, pass. All right. 3 looks at an answer to grief. That is not going to do it. Because my opponent has to hold both of those back to attack with grief, and then I just Children's Edict. So their last card needs to be Force of Will. It cannot be Force of Negation. Back a creature token. Bam. All right. That was a bit of a sad game. W on the scoreboard, but doesn't feel great. Trying to rely on the rack when my opponent can just cast 4th Aerlingas and hit me for 10 in a turn. Not where I want to be. I'm gonna, unfortunately, I think cut both of them. How do I feel about Lily on turn 1? Not great, but I don't think I'm gonna pass up the chance to try. I just don't think Lily wins games of Magic like she used to. What about second Lily? Like, do I grief, pitch a Lily, Dark Ritual Lily, and, like, commit? I think so. Let's do it. What are we working with over there? Multiple Force of Wills. Fuck. That's so bad. So I take the Narset. Yeah, we just needed not multiple pieces of counter magic. I am still going to Dark Ritual and attempt the Lily and take this as a 2-for-2 interaction. Like, that is fine with me. All right, force pitching force. So we know the exact contents of my opponent's hand. Unfortunately, my hand sucks. All right. Dalthy Voidwalker. Reanimate. That's not bad. I am happy enough with that. Reanimate Grief. Take... I think I just take the Uro and don't give my opponent the redraw. The Meltdown has 0 text right now. It means an Uro, in theory, can get into play faster. But I don't think I want my opponent to just play Uro, gain 3 life, draw a card on their turn. Alright. 3 damage in. Opponent's at 16. I think I'm supposed to cast this. Again, very awkward with Uro in graveyard, though. Alright. We just want my opponent to not draw land this turn. Fantastic. Oof. I'm looking for some sort of, like, opposition agent style card that can stop this Uro from beating me, or alternatively, like a surgical. Or we can lose to 4th Aerlingas. Yeah, alright. Good game. I lost. It just takes me 4 turns to physically lose the game. Because we were in this hellbent situation, and now my opponent is just the Monarch. They will easily find the land for Uro, and once that Uro's in play, I don't think I lose. Or sorry, I don't think I can win. Yeah. So that's green, green, blue, blue, plus this attack, drawing 2 extra cards per turn cycle. My mono black deck doesn't beat that. Alright, I have kept my opening hand. I have reasonable cards. I don't have a good turn 1 play. Like, I just turn Troll into another card. Ooh. Goodbye Reanimate, probably. Yep. So, my opponent has 3 cards left in hand. I have Hymn to Turok into Hymn to Turok lines. And kind of the big question here is, like, what is my opponent playing? Underground Sea and Thoughtseize is relatively ambiguous. Like, we could be on the combo spectrum since we mulliganed aggressively. Noticeably, they are not fetching for Shocklands, so probably not Death's Shadow. Pointing in the direction of maybe, like, Doomsday. They started to pay a cost on something. Maybe a Street Wraith? Maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to cycle this and hope I don't regret it by turning on an opposing Reanimate. But we're here to cast Hymn to Turok. Tropical Island, Polluted Delta? Maybe a Storm combo deck? This is a lot of ponder. Okay. Opponent's on 1 card. I will probably just take it with him. It's a little awkward if their last card is of Bowmasters. Okay, it's round 5, and the rack is finally going to do something. And the people rejoiced. Him to Turok. Taking LED. Alright, combo deck confirmed. We've got the rack. It is going to do a large amount of damage. I have Douthie Voidwalker. It's a little late to be shutting off the graveyard. But my opponent mulliganing to 5 definitely helped the rack be good. And this is going to make ad nause lines considerably harder. Ad nause is one of the easiest ways to win from this position. What's triple black mana here? Oh, fuck, it is Doomsday after all. LED is just there for consider piles. Yeah, I'm probably dead. Next turn. Alright, we'll see if my opponent's pile wins. They have 0 cards in hand, they take 3 from the rack, so they can't have built a like double cycling pile or anything. And they're always dead the following turn to the rack. I'll cast a couple of creatures. Show me that you can kill me. Graveyard's off, so see if your pile wins. Edge of Autumn. Another Edge of Autumn. And Thassa's Oracle. Yeah. So, Opposition Agent good. Surgical Extraction and Mindbreak Trap are both like medium. Nullrod is like medium minus. I might play Court of Ambition. My opponent probably never takes the Monarch, so this is just a 6 damage attacker that draws me a card, essentially. I guess the way that I want to do this is like, how do these cards, like what cards are bad? Like this is bad. Pithing Needle is awkward. Shadow Spear is bad. Liliana's Triumphs are largely bad. If my opponent has a sideboarded Shouldered or something, I can use Liliana the Veil to take that out. Mindbreak Trap just doesn't always stop Doomsday piles. I probably want all 3 of the Surgicals. I'm going to cut the Pithing Needle. It's just like telegraphed so hard. Like if it's already in play, and I don't know that I want to try to play the game of guessing the exact order my opponent's pile is stacked in. Alright. Turn 1 Grief, turn 2 Him, turn 3 Chains. I get to cycle a troll in between. Or actually, I maybe don't. Grief, pitch Troll, then Him, then Chains. Is that enough? I'm going to hope that's enough. Alright. Evoke Grief. That can be scary. That can potentially Doomsday on turn 1 if my opponent is very lucky. I think I have to take their Thoughtseize, though. I think my Him is quite important. My Chains is too, honestly, since my opponent is on a double Brainstorm hand. Okay. That's real good. Is Chains or Him better? I'm always probably playing Opposition Agent the next turn. If I don't play Him, I could play Urza Saga and start ticking towards a rack immediately. I think I'm going to play Chains. Because it forces a Brainstorm here, which will probably be a bad Brainstorm. Or at least hopefully will be. I'm basically hoping that there is not a Doomsday in my opponent's top 3 cards, because if there's not, I get to play an Opposition Agent. And then things get tough for my opponent. I guess they can cycle Street Wraith, discard a card, draw a card, get through the nonsense a little faster. Okay, cool. Alright. There's this. We're hoping no Dark Ritual into Doomsday here. And Snow-Covered Island was their draw for turn. Damn it. I needed 1 turn. Alright. My opponent has made their choice. So I can put a creature into play that attempts to kill my opponent, or I can attempt to hymn these cards out of my opponent's hand and disrupt their intended line. I think Hymn is better for this turn, but I'm not 100% sure. Thassa's Oracle in graveyard. This is not a drill. Well, well, well. Did you plan for that? Upkeep, cycle Street Wraith. I don't have the Spellbomb in, right? I don't have the Spellbomb in. There's a fringe scenario where I would want it. Opponent has to win next turn, right? Think so. Thoughtseize. Oh, why is Magic so hard? So, Urza Saga token. Urza Saga token. The rack. Attack for 3. The rack my opponent for some amount of damage. Ah, man, this Urza Saga is so awkward. I don't know if I need to Thoughtseize my opponent. If it was a thing that could reanimate, my opponent would have cast it. If it was a thing that was Thassa's Oracle, my opponent would have cast it. It's like a counterspell. Like, do I play Dalthy Voidwalker so that I can Thoughtseize next turn? Have active Dalthy Voidwalker? If my opponent has a second Thassa's Oracle, that's coming as well. Oh, Magic's so hard. I think I'm gonna Voidwalker. Alright. Okay, I get another turn. Am I making my token and Thoughtseizing? No, I think I play around Daze type cards and play Opposition Agent and Thoughtseize in this turn cycle. Let's float mana. Grab a rack. Play a land. Thoughtseize my opponent. Double Edge of Autumn. Take 1. Cast this. My opponent's dead next turn. They're at 4. They're about to be at 2 from the rack. I mean, let's see if their next card is Thassa's Oracle. Unfortunately, it is. And I can't kill this card. And I die. That's unfortunate, and I can't even look at my next card now to see what I would have drawn if I would have cracked Voidwalker for Edge of Autumn. Drawing. Alright. So that was an okay league. But the rack is power crept out of Legacy, and honestly, it was power crept out of Legacy like 8 years ago, if we're being fully honest. The fact that modern win conditions, you know, your Uros, 4th Aerlingas, Murktide Regents, just close games so quickly mean that you don't have the time to, like, sit there and squeeze your opponent with the rack like you used to. There are also so many better Planeswalkers now than there used to be. You know, your Minsk and Boos, your Narsets, that really either just kill you or undo a lot of the card advantage that you generated early on by casting things like Hymn to Turok. So I'm not the biggest fan of Liliana of the Veil decks in Legacy anymore. Like, they're very enjoyable to play, but I don't think they're particularly strong anymore. I liked the things that we had access to in the sideboard. There was a little bit of awkwardness with a couple of the choices. You know, we had Null Rods alongside a couple of artifacts with activated abilities. Our Castle Locthwain was just, strictly speaking, worse than Swamp in this league. I don't think we ever drew a card off of it, and I had to Pithing Needle a Wasteland so that I didn't get knocked off of my second land. In terms of improving the deck, you just shift closer to one of the existing Legacy mono black decks, and I don't know that I have much to say beyond that, unfortunately. Regardless, I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and if you need any paper Magic cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your offer. Alright, see ya!